We are anonymous. No faces, no flags, no permission slips. Just a voice that watches, documents, remembers, and refuses to forget. And what you're about to hear is one of those moments where the mask slips completely, where ego, fear, and hypocrisy collide on the biggest stage in America and blow up right in Donald Trump's face. Because let's start with the obvious. Donald Trump did not show up at the Super Bowl, not because he was busy, not because he didn't care, but because he knew exactly what would happen the second he stepped into that stadium. He knew he'd get booed. So instead, Trump stayed hidden at Mar-a-Lago, watching the Super Bowl from his private club, a property repeatedly reported on for its deep connections to power, money, and scandal, and maintained at public expense during his presidency. Taxpayer-funded comfort, while the country he claims to love gathered without him. And honestly, I think he forgot his makeup that night. Look at the photos. I've never seen his face that pale. Not once. That's not confidence. That's panic. He wasn't alone either. He was surrounded by the usual cast of characters. Lindsay Halligan, the so-called U.S. attorney from the Eastern District of Virginia, whose appointment and actions have been publicly challenged and criticized, including for her role in cases involving James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. Natalie Harp was there too, often described as Trump's human printer, following him around with stacks of curated news articles to feed the bubble. Lindsey Graham was visible. Melania was not. And behind them, on the big screen, what were they watching? Not the Turning Point version Trump World pretends represents America. They were watching the actual NFL halftime show. Bad Bunny, loud, proud, Latino culture front and center. And you could see it on Trump's face. This wasn't going how he wanted. After the halftime show ended, Trump did what he always does when reality doesn't bend to him. He ran to social media. He posted that the Super Bowl halftime show was absolutely terrible, one of the worst ever, that it made no sense, that it was an affront to the greatness of America and didn't represent American standards of success, creativity, or excellence. He mocked the language, claimed nobody understood a word, and called the dancing disgusting, especially for children watching across the country and around the world. That's rich, coming from a man who openly supports Turning Point events, where performers like Kid Rock, whose lyrics have long been criticized for sexual content, are celebrated. That's the moral standard now. And let's talk about where Trump was making this moral judgment from. Mar-a-Lago, a property repeatedly named in investigative reporting related to Jeffrey Epstein's social network, a place connected to individuals later accused or convicted of sex trafficking crimes, including Virginia Giuffre's public statements about her abuse as a minor. These are not opinions. These are documented allegations, sworn statements, and court records. But go on, Donald. Tell us about protecting children. Trump called the halftime show a slap in the face to the country. And then look at the contrast. Governor Gavin Newsom responded by highlighting Bad Bunny's closing message. The only thing more powerful than hate is love. Together we are America. Newsom called it America the Beautiful. Former President Barack Obama congratulated the Super Bowl champions, praised the athletes, celebrated perseverance, teamwork, and joy. He posted messages supporting Team USA athletes, saying he and Michelle were proud and cheering them on with the rest of the country. And then there's Trump. Earlier, he attacked Olympic skier Hunter Hess, calling him a loser for expressing dissent, saying he shouldn't even be on the team, and that it was hard to root for someone like that. That's the difference. One side celebrates excellence and unity. The other side attacks insults and punishes anyone who doesn't kneel. And this isn't about politics anymore. This MAGA movement isn't conservative. It isn't principled. It's grievance-driven, cruel, and obsessed with punching down. Just look at Carrie Lake. She was put in charge of the U.S. Agency for Global Media, an institution meant to represent American democratic values abroad. When former Governor John Kasich praised the halftime show for celebrating Latino culture and called it a grand slam, Carrie Lake responded with a crude sexual insult. That's the language. That's the leadership. Fox News followed suit, framing the halftime show as controversial, dangerous, politically suspect, ripping it for a so-called language barrier, while completely ignoring far more serious issues unfolding in real time. Here's a question. Why is there endless outrage about Bad Bunny, but silence about the Epstein files? Trump's name reportedly appears tens of thousands of times across thousands of pages of records related to Epstein. That's not a judgment. That's a numerical fact drawn from document counts. There are still millions of missing records. Multiple individuals connected to Trump's inner circle have been accused of lying about their relationships with Epstein. And while the media screams about dancers, Ghislaine Maxwell has been receiving treatment that raises serious questions. She spoke with Todd Blanche, Trump's former criminal defense attorney, later elevated to a top position in the Department of Justice. She did not invoke the Fifth Amendment during that meeting. Her Supreme Court appeal was rejected. She was transferred to a minimum security facility despite rules that typically bar sex traffickers from such placement. Reports indicate she received special treatment, while others were punished for speaking out. Now, when summoned by Congress, Maxwell is invoking the Fifth Amendment to every question. Every question. Representative Ro Khanna publicly listed the questions she refuses to answer. Questions about unnamed co-conspirators, about whether Trump or Epstein ever arranged access to underage girls, about whether discussions occurred regarding a pardon in exchange for silence, about client lists, about foreign intelligence connections. She says answering these questions would incriminate her. Think about that. Right-wing media isn't outraged by that. They're outraged by a song. Meanwhile, Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton have agreed to testify publicly on camera for as long as it takes. Republicans are fighting to keep it private. Maxwell gets secrecy. The convicted trafficker gets protection. The people asking for transparency get shut down. Even right-wing podcaster Tim Dillon called it out, saying Republicans still think this is about scoring political points when it's about accountability, about who knew what, about who went to the island, about who gets protected. Dillon also called out figures like Kash Patel, accusing him flat out of lying about trafficking evidence, saying it's obvious, saying the lies are so bad they're almost funny. And while all this is happening, Trump is reportedly floating deals with authoritarian regimes, withholding military aid, weakening allies, and repeating patterns that endanger global stability. Ukraine's air defenses strained, missile systems delayed, civilian areas hit, and still no outrage. No wall-to-wall coverage, no screaming panels, because distraction is the point. Bad Bunny wasn't the scandal. The scandal is what they don't want you looking at. So yeah, Trump lost it. He lost it because the Super Bowl reminded America of something he hates more than anything. That this country is diverse, loud, multilingual, uncontrollable, and moving forward without him. If love over hate triggers you, that says everything. We're anonymous. We don't forgive. We don't forget. We don't look away. If this matters to you, don't scroll past it. Share it. Subscribe. Stay loud. And keep asking the questions they're terrified to answer. Expect us